our guns, burning up our flag, playing shitty country music. They forgot about the hag. Well, don't you think it's time we all got downright mad? Let's take our country back. Well, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that's just what'll happen if you rob me to get a fix. No, I ain't messing around. I got no problem putting shitheads down. Let's take our country back.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. Now, Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and Farmer Joe's has everything for that perfect moment. Farmer Joe's knows that some people have busy schedules, so they may not have time to cook full Thanksgiving dinners. We have them prepared, ready for pre-order now at Farmer Joe's. Everything you need and more. Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. Joining us, political analyst, multimedia commentator, businessman, attorney, Mr. Ford O'Connell. I am Smoking Joe. Welcome to Cracker Culture. Ford, before we start, let's give thanks to the men and women who served our country to protect the freedoms in which we are in jeopardy of losing because of the current administration. We support and honor all of you and want to wish you a happy Veterans Day, and we cannot thank you enough for your service.
I couldn't agree more with you, Joe. We honor America's veterans for their patriotism, their love of country, and their willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. So happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. And as you know, in Southwest Florida, Joe, I think 1 in 10 folks in Southwest Florida are veterans.
Yeah, we have a very heavy veterans population, and you know, our local BFWs, look, they're great. I mean, I eat lunch at least twice a week at the local BFW here in LaBelle. So, yeah, thank you all for your service. Well, Ford, after watching the third Pete debate in Miami, I can tell you I don't feel any more confident that our freedoms will not be infringed upon with that group on stage. I'm going to play a little clip here.
Who's moderating this debate? This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We've got Kristen Welker here. The Trump-Russia collusion hoax was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation.
Hillary, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do?
Finish them.
Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
They're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country.
Right. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check.
Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see.
The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this is what I will tell you.
So Ford, clearly Ramaswamy, in my opinion, calling out the commentators and media was the best part of the entire GOP debate.
I have to agree with you. I don't know what the RNC was thinking by allowing Lester Holt and Kristen Welker of NBC to do this. That would be a lot like saying to Vivek's point, the Democrats would never agree to allow Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson to moderate a debate. Why would the Republicans allow someone who pushed the Russia hoax and also gave the questions in 2016 during the Democratic primary to Hillary Clinton? I mean, they are not neutral moderators, and they're certainly not moderators that should understand what a Republican primary electorate's thinking.
Well, I really clearly look, nobody on that stage backed Trump or said anything supportive about Trump except for Ramaswamy. And I really think that out of everybody up there, they're basically all never Trumpers except for Ramaswamy. He still was very positive talking about the president.
Well, and Ramaswamy drives them all crazy. I mean, he's almost, if you look at it like high school football, he's almost a scout team Trump. And if he is getting underneath their skin, Lord knows what 45 will do to them if they were actually in the debates. Look, I think the debate should be canceled because Donald Trump is the presumptive Republican presidential nominee. Now, I understand having run as a candidate, it's hard to tell candidates that, but that is the case. The only hopeful thing is the fourth debate, the next one that's supposed to come up in December in Alabama, is going to be hosted by News Nation with Megyn Kelly and others. And I'm a little bit more interested to see how they're going to do it. But at the same time, I don't know what the value is. And as I've cited to you before, Joe, according to Rasmussen reports, 52% of Republican voters want the debates canceled. And after what I saw the other night, I'm very sympathetic to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most boring debate I've ever watched. And I mean, you know, if I want to watch a couple of girls fight, I can watch my two daughters do what I watched Nikki Haley and Ramaswamy do to each other.
Let me say one thing. What I didn't understand, okay, was when Nikki Haley said she uses her high heels for ammunition. I just, to this point, I don't get that. I mean, maybe somebody more wise in the Second Amendment than myself could explain that one to me, but I have no idea what she's talking about.
Well, I don't have no idea what half of them's talking about. That's why I have you on the show with me to help explain it. Well, skipping on Trump, he had a packed event, and Donald Trump overshadowed NBC's third debate. Here's a clip, and we'll talk about this.
Good evening, Trump country. You know, I've spent a lot of time at Trump rallies, and I gotta say, this is one of the best. Because our country has never needed Donald Trump more than we do right now. And I love you too. I was going to Trump rallies way back in 2016 when I first worked on the president's campaign. 8 years later, it is just as exciting as when he came down that beautiful golden escalator the very first time. I know I'm upsetting a lot of Democrats by being here tonight, because they like to pretend that they are the party of women. They don't like that the very first woman to ever serve as governor of Arkansas is a proud conservative Republican. And my message to them is very simple. You cannot be the party of women if you cannot tell us what a woman is. The truth is, it's not even a question anymore between right and left. It is normal versus crazy, and the left is doubling down on crazy. That is why tonight I am so proud to endorse my former boss, my friend, and everybody's favorite president, Donald J. Trump.
Well, I want to thank you very much, and Sarah, thank you for the wonderful endorsement, and Arkansas is in very good hands. It's a great place. It's a great state. Florida, great state. We love to be with you. And I didn't have to come too far. I'm thrilled to be here in the heart of Miami with thousands of proud, hardworking, God-fearing American patriots. That's what you are.
Mr. President, we're so honored that you're here in the city of Hialeah. And I told you how honored we were that we were going to do right by you, because you've always kept your promise to the residents of this great nation, and we're appreciative. And I will be asking next week the City Council of Hialeah, some of the members of the City Council are here with us today, our Council President is here, our other council members are here. And I will be asking them next week to be able to authorize and vote affirmatively as we name a street after you, Donald Trump Way.
Well, that's what it looked like in Hialeah. I don't think I would want to be on the Miami over there on the Miami debate stage with that going on at the same time.
Look, I think it's the brilliance of Donald Trump. There's a Republican presidential debate going on, and more attention is at his rally in Hialeah. And I'll say this: it was very, very smart for Trump to do it in Hialeah. Right now, Florida is not a battleground state in 2024. It's most likely going to go to Donald Trump. But what's interesting here that Trump is doing is he's making stronger connections with Cuban voters, particularly in Hialeah, because when we look at the 6 battleground states that are going to be important in 2024, your Pennsylvania, your Wisconsin, your Michigan, your Georgia, your Arizona, and your Nevada, it's going to be Hispanics that are going to be a large part of whether or not Donald Trump wins or loses. And right now, he's cut Biden's support in half with Hispanics. So all around, I think this was a brilliant event in Hialeah, and what a way to really stick it to Ron DeSantis in his own backyard.
And I've seen a huge amount of local people that we know, conservatives, that were at Hialeah. I mean, my pictures are flooded with pictures of other conservatives from our area that made the trip over there just to see Donald Trump.
Well, look, if you've never been to a Trump rally, you really need to go, because it is such a surreal experience where you can actually sit with a lot of people who think like you do. And it's just, it's almost like going to a college football game. The energy, the atmosphere, it's just really an unbelievable thing. And I tell people, if you get the chance, make sure you go.
I'm going to skip on over to your favorite person, the Bidens here. It seems that Peter Doocy is not Joe Biden's favorite journalist. I'll play a clip and you tell us what you know about this.
President, why did you strike Iran's Revolutionary Guard?
Because they struck us.
And President Biden, why do you
hit them again?
They struck us.
Why do you think it is in this election season that
why
voters...
do you think it is? I always take your question.
It's a good one. I got 2 good ones. Why do you think it is that people should be more concerned about abortion access than your age?
I don't think it's a comparable comparison.
Why do you think it is that you're trailing Trump in all these swing state polls?
Because you don't read the polls. I'll give there are 10 polls. 8 of them I'm beating him in those states. 8 of them. You guys only do 2. CNN and New York Times. Check it out. Check it out. We'll get you a copy of all those polls.
You don't believe you're trailing in battleground states?
No, I don't.
So he's clearly upset with Peter, and he clearly thinks he still has a chance to remain president.
Yeah, here's the deal. If the election were held today, Donald Trump would win the election with more than 300 electoral votes, according to the polls. That is what has got the Biden White House in such freak out mode. If he's referencing that New York Times poll that said those 5 of the 6 battleground states, Trump is leading, except he tried to say he was only losing in CNN and New York Times. He's actually losing in the Morning Consult poll, the Siena poll. He's losing in all of them, and he's been losing in all of them for more than a month and a half since the Washington Post came out and said he was losing by 10 points nationally and Trump was winning. And as for his age, look, there's no question about it. 71% of voters, including most Democrats, believe that Biden is too old to serve effectively as president for another 4 years.
I know Peter Doocy really gives it to him more than any other reporter I've seen out there. I really at least ask the questions. Why are we not seeing more journalists like with the guts to do these things?
Here's the thing about Peter Doocy. Here's why I give a hat tip to him. It's not just because of his affiliation with Fox. I've known Peter for a very long time. And what I'll say is Peter will ask tough questions of Donald Trump. He'll also ask tough questions of Joe Biden. The problem I have with every other journalist in what is known as the White House press corps is they only ask tough questions of the Republican, and they never ask tough questions of the Democrats, that therefore it makes you think that if they're not asking tough questions, then basically they're trying to manipulate the news in favor of Joe Biden. So think about this for a minute. Donald Trump is leading in all these polls and all the important states that it takes to win. Now, granted, we're about a year away from Election Day 2024, and that's with the media helping Joe Biden, and he still has such abysmal numbers. And the reason is very simple. I'm going to sum it up for you in one simple statistic. A $300,000 home, the mortgage on a $300,000 home 2 years ago under Trump was $1,250 a month. Under Joe Biden, it's $2,500. It's double. You want to know why everyone's screaming? That's why they're screaming. It goes to every cost, gas, rent, you name it. But that little statistic on a $300,000 home, what we would call Main Street. If Main Street can't survive under Joe Biden, then guess what? He's not going to make it, and Donald Trump's going to win.
Well, why are more Republicans not going after the Trump legal issues?
This is a fantastic story, and I'm glad you brought this up. So there is a PAC called Win It Back, which is aligned with the Conservative Club for Growth. And what happens was they tested about 4 different ads in Iowa and some of these primary states about Trump's legal issues, the 91 charges, the 700 years. And basically, they didn't work. 3 of them actually increased Trump's support, particularly with less conservative Republican primary voters, meaning some right-leaning independents. Look, you don't have to be a lawyer like me. You don't even have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to know anything. The idea that one person can be charged in 4 different localities to such an extreme, the odds of that happening and impaneling a jury are about the same, Joe, as you going and winning Powerball next week. It's an impossibility in the legal system. That's how corrupt it is. They can't even they're screwing up a fix, for gosh sakes.
Well, look, I support Trump. All the naysayers say what they want to. I clearly believe that he's going to be our next president.
Well, hey, look, I'm with you. I hope you're right. I will say one thing, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys, particularly in Southwest Florida, when it comes to Trump, who weren't Trump in 2016. They kind of tried to run away from Trump during the midterm elections. They backed various other candidates, and now they're trying to pretend like all of a sudden they're Team Trump again. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, there's a lot of people that need to be exposed on the Republican side for not being 100% Donald Trump. That doesn't mean you don't question it sometimes when Donald Trump, makes a mistake. Because, look, the only infallible human being is Jesus Christ. That said, it's quite clear that a lot of people don't like Trump and they're just playing along because they're in public office.
Well, you invoked Southwest Florida, so you know what time it is.
Man's trash.
Trash. The newly elected Board of County Commissioners chairs are now Mike Greenwell and Kevin Ruane, and I have a clip of that I want to let you see.
Today, it's an honor to serve you all in the capacity of ex officio member to the clerk of the Board of County Commissioners. My purpose here today is to facilitate a vote on a new chairman, as you all know. The process is relatively short and painless, so we'll get right to it. We'll make nominations from the floor. Please remember that nominations do not need a second. We'll close nominations and do a voice vote, and then we'll get to the end. We'll turn over the meeting to the new chairman once elected. So with that said, we'll take nominations from the floor.
I'll nominate Commissioner Mike Greenwell as chairman.
Do we have any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Thank you. Nominations are now closed. We'll go voice vote from my right to your left. Commissioner Ruane, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Sandelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammond?
Aye.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Aye.
And Commissioner Greenwell? Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. The meeting is yours.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, you can move forward with elections for vice chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Clerk, for being here this morning. It's an honor to serve this board. I would like to thank my colleagues for the opportunity to be the chairman. Commissioner Hammond, you're going to be a tough act to follow. They call you Hollywood for a reason. So. And at this time, do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I'll nominate Commissioner Wayne.
I'll move we close nominations. All right, we need a voice vote, so I'll call out. We need Commissioner Pendergrass.
Aye.
Commissioner Sandelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Hammond. Aye. Commissioner Rain.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Now, Ford, I'm telling you, I almost feel bad about some things I said about Adam Botana being proof that even the village idiot can win an election. Look, they need to hire better acting coaches because that was so pre-set up. And if you seen Kevin, he was sitting there just waiting for him to vote his name in.
I don't even know if this was held in public. I mean, they already decided what they were going to do, and all 5 of them agreed to it. I mean, I don't know how else to call it a fix, okay? But I'm not surprised. Look, you look at seniority, I'm not surprised that Kevin is, now the vice chair. I do think it's a little strange that Mike kind of went from the new guy on the block all the way to the chairman, but, it is what it is.
Being the person that said, he's the one that said, I don't know nothing about this. I don't even know why they chose me. He said that when he was running.
He said that when he was running. He was appointed by DeSantis. Then he kind of really didn't run an election because he was already appointed. And then all of a sudden, they elevate him to being the head of the council. Look, nothing against Mike Greenwell, but the bottom line is, how's a new kid on the block who hasn't even been at that table for more than a year, is now all of a sudden the head of the county commissioners? And if you think that somehow it's going to get any better, think again, because, the cabal is working together.
Well, now that brings us to my next thing. The legislators are opposing Cecil Pendergrass, and they propose a resolution on the ballot to make the county manager's seat an elected seat and to create a Lee County mayoral seat, 1 seat for Brian Hammond, 1 seat for Andrew Sun. I'm still happy that Cecil opened the window a little bit to expose the cabal, but what they're creating, a mayor of mayors seat, which I'm sure is what Brian Hammond or Hollywood is going to be holding. And then you got a city manager's elected seat. Well, then there you go. There's Andrew Sun. If they can't get him on the board, they can't get him to head the REC. They can make an elected official, and the cabal can just create a seat for them and give to him.
And they get even bigger. Now think about that. You've now created new elected positions so that you can have even more cronyism take place. I mean, and my only question is when Greenwell called Hammond Hollywood, my only question is, you talking about Hollywood, Florida or Hollywood, California? Because I'm really not sure what he's referring to.
Well, this whole little system Terry's got's working together, and they try to throw out little tidbits when he gets one of his candidates out there to make them look like they're doing something. Jenna Persons Mullica proposed a left lane law, House Bill 317. This will prohibit motorists from using the left lane except for passing. And now look, Ford. There was a couple comments made on that post that I won't repeat that was absolutely hilarious. But the fact is that's a ridiculous law. I drive on these roads. I can't stand it when we get these snowbirds in the left lanes crawling and otherwise I get in that left lane. I see that the car up in front of me are not going as fast as I'm going. I'm going to keep going. And whether you call it passing, you can't. That's too open-ended of a law for them not to be able to just collect more revenue off people on tickets.
Yeah, I think that this is primarily about revenue collection. I can't think of any. Look, when it comes to driving up and down 75, besides the snowbirds, the number one thing that pisses me off is that people rubberneck and look at accidents that are like in the southbound lane while going northbound on 75. I don't understand it. But if you think you can legislate stupidity out with this law, let's be honest. This is not a good law, and this is a law about making more money for the highway patrol.
Well, you also hear locally in the man's trash is State Representative Mike Lombardo has a new opponent, Democrat Denise McCleary. I don't think she'll be a factor. Even with the failed human being Cindy Benyai as her treasurer, I think that Mike will be challenged by a conservative from his own team. Reason I say that, Ford, is there's rumors that our sheriff, Carmine Marcino, has stated that he has $100,000 in PAC money for a viable conservative candidate to oppose Mr. Lombardo.
Look, if that's true, Carmine's a very serious guy. He doesn't, again, we don't know the complete veracity of that, but Carmine's a serious guy. And if that's the case, people seem to be unhappy with Mike. And, if he gets a primary challenge, it could be very, very interesting.
Well, I mean, even Democrats have said that, this Democratic challenger is not even a factor. I mean, that's just a waste of your money, anybody that's donating to that. But, look, I'm no fan of Mike Lombardo's. I'm definitely no fan of how the cabal works, and I think it's time for it to get broken up. Cecil tried. He tried to expose a little bit. Maybe when Mike penned that letter, he should have had the guts to push forward and demand accountability for all of that money. And I haven't heard nothing from him since.
Well, look, he was on the right track about talking about accountability. Then he sort of backtracked. And look, we don't know whether or not he's going to get a primary challenger. We know that whichever Republican wins the primary is going to wind up, maintaining that state house seat. But it seems to me that Mike's gotten himself sort of crosswise with the Terry Miller cabal. And the only question now is, what's going to happen? Does he actually get a primary challenger? I think we should keep an eye on this. I think it's very interesting, but only time's going to tell whether or not Mike Lombardo actually gets a Republican primary challenger.
Over to the school board. Now, I want to play a clip here where Jacqueline Perez, a local advocate, exposes the cover-ups in the findings of the Taylor English in the school district.
English investigation, which in turn was sent to several law enforcement agencies. This investigation was initiated out of a deposition from a lawsuit in which the plaintiff, Mr. Oakes, entered an investigation of the school district he paid for with a private investigator to uncover corruption at the district. The findings in Mr. Oakes' investigation and the $85,000 cost of the Taylor English investigation were exactly what several employees for years had been reporting to the district. And I wanted to remind you of these employees that we have lost over the years, who had loved children and were dedicated employees to the district, who had come forward and had been bullied and harassed. Carlos Briones, Wilson Moreno, Judy Johnson, Sherry Russ, Peggy Slichter, Susan Macchia, Matt Medeiros, and many more. Sadly, we have lost those employees who have now, it's been proven through 2 investigations, that they were telling the truth about everything they had said. And one way or another, this district and this board has to vindicate them, has to make them whole, because their careers were lost. And these investigations that we paid with public funds so much for, $85,000 and more of taxpayers' monies, I want it entered into the record so the public can see what goes on in the district. It's important that we know. I know that you had a workshop where it was lightly touched and the attorney had to send an email out to allow the board to understand the ramifications and the policies that were violated. The public needs to see that also for transparency purposes.
There you have Ms. Perez. I mean, she's right. They need to be open about what they cherry-picked an investigation and didn't show the findings, and it needs to be looked at. Again, we need a forensic audit.
Well, let's remind folks exactly what the allegations are with the Taylor English investigation.
Malfeasance, misappropriations of funds. There's employees that were bullied. There was so many different findings, and I've got a full list of them here. But they did not allow them to investigate the vendors.
I just think it's important to remind people once again that your Lee County tax dollars aren't going to where they're supposed to be, and we should all demand transparency and accountability, regardless of whether we're Republicans or Democrats, because at the end of the day, we're all citizens of Lee County or Southwest Florida and both. And therefore, it's about making sure your government works for you.
Well, Ford, I've saved this last episode of The Man's Trash because it's really trashy. And I want the public to know. I'm going to play a clip at the school board, and then we'll talk about it. I'm very upset about what I've found, and I know a lot of people are waiting to see this part of the show. I'm going to play this, and then we'll go into it. I'm ready. I am Smoking Joe. Hubert H. Humphrey said, "To err is human, to cover it up is bureaucratic." One of our team uncovered books being thrown into dumpsters at Varsity Lakes Middle School. I personally drove to Varsity Lakes Middle School and documented it for myself. Newer books, never opened books, books about history of Florida, books about the Holocaust. Many publications did not appear as ones that would be challenged. Where were the purple problem promoters on this? Amazed the waste was still continuing on Monday, I texted the superintendent and offered free of charge to send my own trucks. These books could maybe have been donated to Holocaust publications to synagogues. I called the superintendent's desk and couldn't get past the desk secretary, who accused me of cursing her. Mind you, I have informed the district that all calls recorded for my safety because I don't trust yous. I received a call from Cheryl Neely claiming the recycling process per district policy, resale gifting is not allowed nor part of their process. This has to be another lie or an attempt to cover up your incompetence, because here on your own school district website proves the very opposite. Seems the district has an online auction site. I personally took the books to Temple Bethel Synagogue. They expressed confusion with the timing of the destruction of books on the Holocaust. I'm sure that you have all got together and concocted a story about these books are no longer part of the curriculum. This is an absolute untruthful. Most of these books were never intended to be a part of the curriculum. Let's inform the public of the real reason for the purchase and destruction of these books: greed. So let's just say it for what it is. State and federal funding, and you want the same amount or more funding provided next year, so it doesn't seem you're underspending, so you have all this excess money to order unnecessary items. This is what keeps our taxes higher, simply that you're all greedy. The fact that you have paid an employee to contact me and flat out lie, surely y'all know me better than that. Claiming that they'll follow the recycling process. If dumping a box into a 20-yard dumpster bound for the landfill is your recycling process, apparently none of you understand it, and I need to learn. I want to make sure that's in the record. The books were stored unopened, untouched, and they were discarded. The serious question that any of these books were could be challenged, even if they were not appropriate. It is for you to throw our taxpayer investments away without trying to reclaim some loss of value. Everyone should be outraged by the malfeasance within this district. Taxpayers, Floridians.
Mr. Phillips, your time. Thank you.
I'm proof right here that y'all do resell stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
You lied to me. You go get the stuff. I would totally see this waste volume, every volume. You'll take that for second and I'll be done. Here's proof that your employees lied to me and said y'all do not resell items. Don't try me like that again. So as you can see, Ford, I was a little fired up. I'm more fired up today. The books they were throwing away were brand new books. Florida collection, done by A&E and his shop. These books were brand new, never used, never opened, dumped box by box. Then there was many publications, Holocaust, the Voices, that I've got all 4 volumes of the Learning About the Holocaust, a Student's Guide. This is, I don't even know, a 4-volume set about the Holocaust. This, folks, with what we're going on in our world right now, this should piss everybody off. Every rabbi, every Christian, everybody should want to know, why is our tax money, and why at this time are they throwing away books on the Holocaust when we're trying to save Israel right now? Why?
Look, Joe, you're exactly right. Let's talk about what Americans know about the Holocaust. 63% of Americans don't know that 6 million Jews were murdered during the Holocaust. Nearly 50% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 39 can't name a concentration camp. 23% of Americans between 18 and 39 believe the Holocaust is a myth. So throw that into what's going on in the world right now. And when it comes to Florida's knowledge, now this is based on a nationwide poll that was taken about 2 years ago that was discussed in NBC News, The Guardian, and many publications. It says that Florida ranks as the 3rd worst in the nation when it comes to knowledge of the Holocaust.
And that shows appropriate because the books set in unopened boxes, the study guides, they did not. And when did they throw them away? In the middle of a war between Israel, Hamas, and Palestine. In the middle of the war, they're throwing away knowledge to erase history.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's the whole problem always. When you try to ignore history, guess what happens? History repeats itself. And that is the big lesson here. I mean, I thought the whole point was to make sure that Florida kids were the best armed with knowledge going forward into the workforce. And this seems to be a sad travesty, particularly given what's going on in the world. And it seems all to be about dollars and cents and expenditures. And that's the whole problem with the way government budgeting works.
Well, and I want to address a couple of things. There was somebody put out a thing that they could tell by the way that I had expressed myself that the superintendent was looking to have a state's attorney, Amira Fox, draw up paperwork for me for trespassing and theft. First place, any of y'all that's listening to that idiot, there's a reason he put stuff out like that, because I refused to interview him when he ran for one of his several failed attempts for a political office, for an elected office. That's untrue. There was nothing I stated. I didn't trespass on no property. I didn't steal nothing. I did go to the property and film some things, not anywhere that I could not get access to like anybody else. I did not go acquire the materials myself. The materials was brought to me by a concerned whistleblower. And yes, if you want to know, the superintendent did address what their policy was on destroying the books. So I looked it up. Again, he is not researching what his employees are telling him because he does not know his own policy. He quoted from policy 7310, disposition of surplus property. Now, it clearly states in here that the district shall review instructional materials, textbooks, library books, manuals, etc., periodically determine the relevance of such materials to the present world and current instructional programs. That alone scares me with the Holocaust book, that being that first part of it. All right. The following criteria be used to review instructional materials for redistribution and possible disposal. 1, concepts or content that do not support the current goals within their curriculum. 2, information that may not be current. 3, worn or beyond salvage. Now, I'm going to tell you, none of these books were worn. None of them look beyond salvage. They've never been touched. They were never opened. Do they support the current goals of this curriculum? Probably not.
Well, so, I think that, if true, really speaks volumes to your point.
Well, and then this Neely lady, Cheryl Neely, that works for the superintendent's office or Dr. Spears' office, tells me that it's their policy, they cannot give away or donate. Well, then read right down on here in the same policy under B, the superintendent is authorized to dispose of obsolete instructional material or other property by first selling it to the highest bidder. Second, by donation to appropriate parties, which could have been Temple Bethel or other synagogues, or by proper waste removal. Look, I'm upset, and I probably didn't give this the coverage it needed, but I support Israel. I stand with Israel. And for us to be at this time throwing away any information where people could learn and know the struggles of the Jewish people, this is a shame and this is an abomination. I'm ashamed to be a part of Lee County and them being a part of getting away with this.
Look, I think you've said it all. I think that, other news organizations should look into what you're talking about. I mean, these are some pretty serious allegations, and I don't know how you can explain away throwing out what seem to be relatively brand new books on the Holocaust, something that apparently those under the age of 35 in this country, in our home state of Florida, and most likely even in Southwest Florida and Lee County, really need to know everything there is to know about it, because it's a time in our history that cannot repeat itself. But yet this lack of knowledge and this curriculum where they're pushing feelings rather than facts is destroying America.
Well, and not only is it an insult to the Jewish people, it's an insult to the veterans who fought to save those people.
Could not agree more, especially now on Veterans Day. You think about the two, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, in World War II, Americans fought to free Germans and Jews across Europe from the Nazis. And somehow it seems to be now that we have members of Congress right now touting death to Jews. This couldn't be a more critical time for this material.
Well, I think this ought to be enough to open up the eyes of the folks around Southwest Florida. We need to have a forensic audit, and we need to really look into who's running our government offices in Southwest Florida. We have a problem here. It's called a cabal. It's called a machine. And it's a big machine. And, I tout out Terry Miller's name all the time, but it ain't just Terry. It ain't just there is a machine that works together. And right now there seems to be a little fraction in unity, but they need to be destroyed. Otherwise, this is going to continue in Southwest Florida, and this is ruining Florida. This is ruining America.
Couldn't agree more. You cannot have cronyism deciding what is best. We elect government so the people choose and the people decide. And when you have what's going on in Lee County, guess what? That's not a government by the people, for the people. It's a government by a certain set of people to help enrich their own pockets, and that's a shame.
Ford, I appreciate you being with me, my friend. Folks, we hope you have a happy Veterans Day. And Israel, we stand with you. For Ford O'Connell, Smoking Joe, love, peace, and gator grease. We'll see you, Florida.